are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
Sooner Nation, the Oklahoma Sooners have officially hired an offensive coordinator, and we literally just ended the season. Let's talk about it here on the Sooner Spotlight. Sooner Nation, big-time news came today about the Oklahoma Sooners hiring their new offensive coordinator, and we're going to talk about it here. But first, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. As always, you can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @RealJoshMahler for more updates on the show and so much more. Go check it out over there. Check out everything that we do over at Soonerspotlight.com. We've got a merch store with all kinds of amazing merchandise that you can support your Sooners and support the show. So please do that real quick. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, give us the follow and a 5-star review. That helps us out so much. Let's go ahead and get into it because there's some big news and it dropped. We've got quite a bit to talk about around this big news, and that is Ben Arbuckle from Washington State, hired as the new offensive coordinator. There was a lot of names kind of thrown around, Dan Mullen being the one that I think a lot of people would have been extremely happy about if we could have pulled that off. One of the other ones I think that were kind of thrown in there was John Craddock, and I think that there was a few other names as well that would have been mentioned. I think Marion from UNLV would have been another guy that we really wanted to see have a shot. And Sooner fans were really divided about who this hire could have been, who this hire should have been. And we end up going with Ben Arbuckle, which is kind of one of those things that you look at and you just scratch your head and say, man, I like it, but do I really love it? And we're not sure. We really have no idea how to feel about this. And I'm here to say the same thing. Arbuckle seems like a safe hire, but he also feels like, I feel like John Craddock felt like he was more of that safe hire, but it didn't really feel like it was, getting that big time hire. And this one feels like it could be repeating history in a really good way. And it could just be, hey, you just went after a guy that really isn't going to fit. I'm here to talk to you about some of my feelings, and I'd love to hear from you guys down in the comments section as well. Looking at Arbuckle and seeing what he's had, he's a 29-year-old coach, which is extremely young, been in the coaching world for not very long at all. He had 3 years, at a lower level, worked his way up, went over to Washington State. It's one of those guys that, man, I really like what I see from him. And I like what he's been able to do. And one of the biggest things is, of course, we've got an offense that is struggling. We are one of the worst offenses in all the nation, 15th out of 16 teams in the SEC in both total scoring offense and total offense. So this offense for Oklahoma has been atrocious, and so we need somebody that's going to come in there and fire things up. I think Ben Arbuckle might just be that guy, and that's why I look at this hire and I say, I'm a little bit excited for this hire. And I see some comparisons to guys in the past. One comparison being Lincoln Riley. We look at that comparison. If you haven't heard the guy talk, go listen to Ben Arbuckle talk just a little bit because you will hear it. You'll hear Lincoln Riley in his voice. But a Lincoln Riley hire kind of gives me a little bit of excitement because if you can remember back when Oklahoma's offense started to give a little bit of struggles, what did they do? They went out and hired this guy, Lincoln Riley, that nobody heard about, this very young guy. I think he was about 32 at the time, if memory serves me correctly. And, he was a young guy and didn't really have a whole lot of experience. And he was over with a little no-name school at ECU and running the offense, and just it didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Although ECU's offense looked extremely good, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Now we go after another young guy, and Ben Arbuckle, who has produced some very good players, worked his way up the ladder very quickly, and to the point where now he's over here. He was at Texas Tech for a little while, went over to Washington State and ran the offense there for the last couple of years. And for his last two quarterbacks, this is what should excite Oklahoma fans. His last two quarterbacks, with John Mateer, who is his current quarterback, He threw for 3,139 yards and 29 passing touchdowns. He was also one of the leading the leading rushers on the team as a quarterback. And that might concern you saying, I don't want to run my quarterback so much, but John Mateer is one of those guys that it was a system that it encouraged him to take off scrambling if there's nothing open on your first, second, maybe even your third read. You go through those reads and you see an opening, just go downfield and make a quick and easy decision. And he's one of those quarterbacks that's really good for that. Anyways, Ben Arbuckle's last quarterback that he had over at Washington State was Cam Ward. Cam Ward's the guy who threw for 3,735 yards and 29 touchdowns last year. An absolute amazing quarterbacks coach, if I must say so myself. It seems like he knows how to work with these quarterbacks. And to give you a little bit more perspective, working with quarterbacks, Cam Ward, 0-star prospect coming out of high school. John Mateer, a 3-star quarterback coming out of high school. So he's a play caller that knows how to work with the quarterback. That's something that we've needed. That's something that we really wanted. Seemed like Arbuckle was going to go to Utah, and it seemed pretty locked in that we were probably going to end up going with Craddock from Tulane. It just made sense. It seemed like everything was leaning that way. And then, of course, the news broke. We end up getting Arbuckle. The deal is finalized now. And I mean, it's exciting, but I think it brings a lot of question marks. I think the first thing that people said when they saw that Arbuckle was coming over to Oklahoma is they said, John Mateer, he's coming over to Oklahoma too then, right? And so it kind of makes you question about what is upcoming for the Sooners when it comes to the quarterback. Who will be the quarterback of the future? And of course, right now we've got Jackson Arnold. I have heard a lot of Oklahoma insiders, specifically, you got guys like Parker Thune and Brandon Drum, those guys over there, which I respect totally. I absolutely love listening to those guys and reading their work and seeing what they put together. They know a lot about Oklahoma. They do have that inside touch. And the way that they talk makes it seem like they're talking about the future quarterback as if it's anyone but Jackson Arnold. My thoughts on that. Jackson Arnold is not in the portal yet. He has not made an announcement to hit the portal yet. That opens on the 8th, if memory serves me correctly. And so I'm very interested to see what he ends up deciding. I'll give you my impression, or my opinion. My impression of Jackson Arnold throughout this season, throughout last season, from what I've seen from him overall, has been that he is an extremely good quarterback with extremely good talent. He does not have the talent around him, nor does he have the play calling around him and the coaching around him to help him make good decisions. What have we seen from Jackson Arnold in the last couple of games? We've seen a Jackson Arnold that is able to make decisions, and of Jackson Arnold who's able to run. Oklahoma fans are cheering for the fact that, hey, we've got this guy, John Mateer, who might be able to come over. Will Arbuckle bring John Mateer over with him? And that's a possibility. So far, I have not heard any credible sources saying that Mateer has hit the portal. And you know what? At this point, it's total speculation because the portal, again, it doesn't open for a little while. We've got a little bit of time before that truly opens. You can sign the paperwork, get it ready, but it doesn't actually hit. You're not actually in the portal and allowed to be talking to other coaches until that portal opens. So, will Mateer come over? He is a great quarterback. Like I said, threw for over 3,000 yards this past season, had himself 29 touchdowns through the air, and was an incredible runner. What I see from John Mateer is a guy that's able to pass the ball really well with amazing touch, can spin the rock downfield, but he's also a guy that can take off running. And he's a guy that you can utilize in the run game, but you can also utilize him in the QB scramble. And that's where I go back to Jackson Arnold. Because again, Jackson Arnold, no portal announcement yet, to my knowledge. And, if you look at what he's done in the last 5-6 games, he's shown that he can use his legs, and you can use him in the run game intentionally. But he's also shown you that if his guys aren't where he needs them to be, if he doesn't feel comfortable putting that ball where it needs to be, then he's just going to take off running, and he's been really good at it. And that's where I stand with Jackson Arnold. I hope that this coaching staff does everything they can do to keep him around. Now, if John Mateer comes open, of course, that's a decision that they have to make. Are we going to take a chance and try to get John Mateer, or who knows, maybe another quarterback that's out there? I think there's a few that are going to be hitting the portal that you could probably go after. But Jackson Arnold, I think a lot of the criticism around Jackson Arnold has come from the fact that he's been without his top 5 to 6 wide receivers all season long. He hasn't had his top 5 wide receivers for a majority of this season. On top of that, he hasn't had about 3 or 4 of his offensive linemen for just about any game this season. And this is also an offense that was run that did not favor Jackson Arnold's ability to be able to run the ball. And it hasn't ever really given Jackson Arnold the option to go just go downfield and scramble until really these last few games when we've seen him shine and we've seen him put the ball on a dime really far downfield a couple of times. And that to me is what gives me hope with Jackson Arnold. I really hope he comes back, and I hope that Sooner fans can see the potential that he has, because I truly do think that Jackson Arnold is a guy that has so much potential, and I know what he's capable of doing. I think us as Sooner fans know what he's capable of doing when he's put in the right situations. If we were able to keep our receiver core, the entire corps, just well and healthy next season, if we were able to go out and get some offensive linemen to step in and help where needed, but also just build up the current freshmen that we have, I think this is an offensive, an offensive group that can really do well. We've got some receivers that we're hoping to get back next year. I know that we're hoping to get Deion Burks back next year. Nick Anderson, hopefully he can be healthy. Jaden Gibson intends to return. Jaleel Farouk is a guy that currently, as I'm speaking, is kind of up in the air, that a lot of fans think that, he might be hitting the portal. I really hope that's not the case. We did lose Jacquez Petaway. I can't blame him one bit for that. He went on his way, and hey, we didn't really use the guy, and he didn't really do much for us. I don't really know a whole lot of the backstory of that, but I think if we were able to bring Jackson Arnold back, personally, I'm on Jackson Arnold's side. I have always been a supporter of Jackson Arnold, and I truly think that he's the quarterback in the future. Now, of course, if John Mateer were to come open and we didn't have Jackson Arnold anymore, I think why not go after that option? And then, of course, we still do have Michael Hawkins, where I've never been down on Michael Hawkins. I like Michael Hawkins. I think he's got a lot of talent. And I do see the upside with Michael Hawkins, much like what I think the rest of you see in him. And I think Michael Hawkins can be a guy that could also succeed. And again, I mean, even if Michael Hawkins didn't show us too much this past season, again, looking over at who Arbuckle is and seeing what Ben Arbuckle has done with his quarterbacks in the past, bringing a 0-star and a 3-star up into the national ranks of being top quarterbacks. Cam Ward and John Mateer both this season are leading the nation in total touchdowns. I mean, that says a lot about what Ben Arbuckle was able to do with these two guys. Of course, Cam Ward not with him anymore, but I think he's what kind of developed Cam Ward. So I think that speaks to what Ben Arbuckle would be able to do if Jackson Arnold were to stick around. And if Jackson Arnold were to leave and we were maybe to go over to Michael Hawkins, there's a few other options I don't think are really worth mentioning personally. But I think Michael Hawkins or Jackson Arnold could really benefit from a quarterbacks coach and an offensive coordinator that understands quarterbacks, an offensive coordinator that's going to scheme with a quarterback to their potential and their strengths, which both of these guys have been known to be able to sling the rock. They can throw the ball very well, but helping them make the better reads, helping them know when to take off and scramble, which, hey, guess what? Both of our quarterbacks know how to do. Hey Sooner fans, did you enjoy this video? Well, go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. What are you doing if you've made it this far and haven't already? You should be able to find that subscribe button over here. And then if you want to see full episodes, we've got those up here and clips right down here. So go check that out. But we thank you all so much for all the love, all the support. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.